Welcome back to Island Bike Life. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the all-new Santa Cruz Megatower and how it compares to the long-standing Hightower LT. These are two pretty fundamentally different bikes, even though the Megatower is meant to replace the LT. The history on the LT is, about a year after the Hightower was originally released, some of the owners had come to the understanding that you could increase the stroke length of the shock and give your bike a little bit more rear travel and make it a little bit more aggressive. As a stopgap measure, Santa Cruz responded and released this whole new bike. Kind of a whole new bike anyway. The front triangle remained the same, the linkage and the rear triangle was all new. This resulted in a bike that was certainly more aggressive than what the original Hightower was intended for, with a slacker head tube angle, more aggressive geometry to a degree. However, it also resulted in a very slack C-tube as well. The Megatower is the new Enduro race bike purpose-built by Santa Cruz that will later this year or early next year replace the LT, which will no longer be in their lineup. Santa Cruz has also gone so far as to repurpose their branding on the LT and are now calling it an aggressive trail bike versus an enduro race weapon. That spot is comfortably now held by the Megatower. The other major changes are, of course, the Megatower succumbs to this new lower, longer, and slacker geometry that is very popular on bikes like this these days. It has a new VPP setup with the lower linkage, which is very responsive and great on longer travel downhill focused bikes like the Bronson and the Nomad before it. It is very versatile. The shock has a high and low position, as well as the wheelbase is able to be adjusted by 10 millimeters smaller or larger with the changing of a set of dropouts. The other major change is that the Megatower can come shocked with either a air spring or a coil spring in the rear, which really gives some good versatility and the ability to really customize your ride. The frame sizing kind of remains the same between smaller sizes all the way up to XXL. And at 6'1" with a 33-inch inseam, I would put myself in the extra large framing size on both bikes, potentially even a XXL on the LT. Build kit wise, they both come in a frame-only option, which is going to be a pretty standard pricing across the market, as well as 5 additional trims. They're going to be split between their lower C frame and their more expensive CC frame series, which is going to save you about a half a pound on the overall weight. Speaking of weight, the LT is at least 2, if not 3 pounds lighter across the board on each individual spec, depending on what you get. That margin is of course going to be a little bit smaller if you opt for the coil shock in the rear. But what it really comes down to when you're looking at these two bikes is how do they perform on the trail and where might they be in Santa Cruz's lineup and which one might be for you. When it came to the climbing, I was a little bit surprised with the results here. Full disclosure, I rode the LT last and was a little bit more fatigued. However, my perceived effort I thought was the same throughout the entire testing period. On the same day, I rode the same climbing trail and I found that the Megatower was slightly faster than the LT. I wouldn't have pegged that as the outcome to this test, as the pedaling platform on the LT is so much nicer. It really is meant to be a trail bike versus the enduro bike that the Megatower is. The anti-squat on the LT is so much nicer, there's not as much pedal bob, and the suspension setup in terms of the air pressure required in the shock is so much less finicky than it is on the new lower length VPP setup. All that to say, both pedaled really well, and after giving it some more thought, even though the Megatower is heavier, longer, and has a slacker head tube angle, that better pedaling position and really taking the time to dial in that rear shock showed me that while this is a very engaging and plush platform, it can perform very effectively when it comes to climbing and long days pedaling in your saddle. Though the Megatower was technically faster, in overall feel and just long days in the bike for pedal feel and maybe climbing, I think I would still give the nod overall to the Hightower LT, though as you can see, the new Megatower is certainly no slouch in this department. When it came to the trail riding, this is where the bikes really did start to separate for me. The Hightower LT was originally looked at as an enduro bike, and the Santa Cruz team raced it to great success. So clearly it can go downhill really, really fast. But it shines so much nicer in the trail riding category than the Megatower does. It's just a more fun bike in this particular environment. It's a little bit snappier, it's a little bit shorter, it weighs a little bit less. The pedaling platform is great when it comes to this type of environment, and it just moves around the trail beautifully. It really is quite a fun bike when it comes to this sort of all-mountain aggressive trail riding. The Megatower will get it done for you, there's absolutely no doubt there, but it is a little bit longer and a little bit heavier. The suspension does feel a little bit different. It is very plush and engaging when you're moving around the trail, so that is something to keep in mind. But in the end, after riding and spending several hours on both of these bikes, I definitely have to give the trail riding category win to the Hightower LT, though the Megatower really did perform well and I did enjoy it. Now for the descending, this is where the Megatower absolutely destroys the Hightower LT. Like I said, the Santa Cruz race team took this bike and rode it for a couple of years and had great success on it. Then the Megatower came and changed the game for Santa Cruz. This bike is made to go downhill as fast as you possibly can. It's a very engaging, wonderful suspension platform. It really, really is. Small bump sensitivity is there, really good in G-outs and corners. It jumps off things and takes the hits that you want to give it. If you're in a place that's very steep and you're doing shuttle only, you can bump that travel up to 180 millimeters in the front instead of having 160. And take on anything you point this bike at, no problem. The Hightower LT, to a degree, is able to do that, but the suspension and the way the bike is set up really finds its limits pretty quickly. You're going to be outgunned on the steepest and fastest terrain out there, absolutely. And the Megatower is just made for downhill prowess, and it's made to just move over and through anything that it comes in contact with. I wasn't surprised when the Megatower came out ahead on a trail that I know fairly well. The Hightower LT was very fun going downhill, but in this particular category, the Megatower is hands down the clear winner. No question about that at all. And so what are some final thoughts, and which bike might you want? Well, a lot of that's going to come down to when you've seen this video and how many Hightower LTs are left. The reality is the Megatower is going to replace this bike, and by fall or at least early spring next year, they're not going to be making any more of these. The most likely scenario is that the new Hightower that is going to release later this year will take up and meet somewhere in the middle of the Hightower LT and the original Hightower. Somewhere, my guess would be around 140 or 145 millimeters of rear travel, probably paired to 150 up front. The Megatower is the new kid on the block here for Santa Cruz, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. It's going to be sold out probably for the next little while, and so getting your hands on one might be challenging. As the year goes on, I think you're going to be finding some deep discounts on Hightower LT frames and potentially full bikes as well as stocks start to diminish. Either way, I think what it comes down to is, do you want an enduro race bike or do you want a really nice aggressive trail bike? Well, only you can answer that, and if you want something that you can go do all mountain, big, long epics on, the Hightower LT is probably the one that you want. Yeah, you can go do a 4-hour day on the Megatower, a 5-hour day through an all mountain trail riding scenario, and it'll get it done, but it's not going to be as enjoyable. If your main focus in life is enduro racing and trying to better yourself or push yourself to the absolute limit going downhill, then the Hightower LT is going to be undergunned when you put it up against the Megatower, that's for sure. So really for me, that's what it comes down to. Do you want an aggressive trail bike or do you want an enduro race weapon? And only you can answer that, but either way, Santa Cruz is going to have you covered. I really hope you liked this head-to-head look of the Megatower and Hightower LT by Santa Cruz. If you like what I'm doing here, think about hitting the subscribe and the like button. Leave me a comment down below and come and find me on Instagram. And as always, thanks again for watching. Now let's go hit the trails.